thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Phi Labs or the Archway Protocol. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another week on the Archin podcast. I'm your host, Valeria Salazar, joined by co-host Max McHenry.
Hey, happy to be back and get into what's going on in the cosmos and beyond.
Absolutely. So first up with proposals, we have a draft proposal from Evmos to spend 3 million Evmos to create a DAO liquidity pool between Evmos and Juno. So the idea of this is to align Juno and Evmos communities for future collaboration and to diversify their treasuries, as the LP fees from these pools would be feeding into the DAOs of each of these.
Interesting way for them to team up, and I actually like this idea. It's something that I know we've discussed internally at Phi Labs about how this could benefit certain communities. We recently announced a partnership actually with Jackal, and I think we're going to work with them to do something similar for some of our dApps to essentially provide more liquidity for people who need it, and then you can utilize each chain and really utilize the benefits that each chain offers. While kind of sharing that liquidity so that the whatever protocol needs it most at the time, as long as both communities agree, it can be deployed in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And up next, going into the cosmos, first things first is yesterday was IBC's second birthday. So the IBC protocol has been around for 2 years now, and it's hard to believe that in such little time, it's actually made such large strides.
It really has, and we're really hoping, I think all of us in the Cosmos ecosystem hope it becomes the standard for kind of interoperability communication. And seeing it grow the way it has over the past 2 years, it's really starting to expand outside of just the Cosmos. There's other ecosystems who are now looking into IBC or trying to create paths to basically interact with IBC. And I think that's an amazing thing for not only the Cosmos, but really just for anyone who wants safer, more trustless bridging. And I think IBC provides that.
Yeah, we've mentioned a few on this podcast, actually. We mentioned the subnet and Avalanche and the multi-hop solution that's being worked on for Ethereum. So I'm really looking forward to how IBC continues to progress at this rate. In the next 2 years, we're going to see some really incredible things.
One thing I know that a lot of people in the ecosystem have been really hoping to have is native stables. So recently, Noble announced that they'll be partnering with Circle, who is the team behind USDC, and they will be bringing native USDC to the Cosmos ecosystem. So this is exciting for a lot of reasons. I think one, liquidity has been a huge issue in this space. And then also it's just bridge risk. You're eliminating a lot of bridge risk when you can natively mint these stables in the Cosmos ecosystem where you intend to use them. And as far as I know, the chain is currently live, but they're not going to be issuing the USDC here for another month or so. And that's just to make sure that the chain's stable and that they can make sure there's no issues before they issue a bunch of essentially liquidity to the Cosmos ecosystem. So excited for them and happy to have a native stablecoin right here in the Cosmos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the need for a native, stablecoin in Cosmos was really highlighted by the Terra collapse last year. And so I'm really happy to have such a wonderful team behind it as well. Strangelove Ventures, along with Jelena and some other really key figures in the Cosmos ecosystem that are, quite trustworthy and really aligned with the Cosmos vision and know the space well and have kind of been warned off of the risks regarding, what happened with Terra and everything. I'm really happy to see them bringing this in, and I'm looking forward to having native USDC and Cosmos. So that's going to be really exciting.
It is, and it's even more exciting because from talking to the team, it sounds like they intend to bring more than just USDC natively to the Cosmos. I think that's going to be down the road, and they didn't really speak to anything specifically, but I just thought that was exciting to hear that USDC will not be the only asset that they'll bring natively.
Yeah, I think everyone has really big hopes for the Cosmos ecosystem, and I'm happy to see, big things coming. And so speaking of big things, so OmniFlix, which is a P2P marketplace for NFT creators and DAOs, is teasing something big that will launch on April 20th at 4:20 p.m. UTC. So just personally speaking, I think that date hints at, a potential market that, OmniFlix might be hinting towards in terms of bringing over to the Web3 space. But what do you think, Max?
Yeah, I think they're fully leaning into the meme culture on this one with the timing and date of this marketplace launch, or I guess this announcement, I should say. We don't know exactly what it will be, but either way, I'm interested to hear this because Omniflix is actually one of those products I've been interested in and kind of watching the development of for probably over a year now. And I know about a year ago that's when they started hinting at an airdrop for the Flix token and kind of discussing their marketplace. But since then, I haven't really heard a whole lot. So it's nice to hear from that team again. Nice to hear that they have a big announcement coming, and hopefully they'll have some updates for us on some of those things like the airdrop and when the marketplace will be fully functional for the users. And then another thing we wanted to talk about, which is super exciting, is that the Cosmoverse finally announced its dates. So Cosmoverse, which will be hosted in Turkey, in Istanbul, announced that they'll be hosting the event on October 2nd through October 4th. Personally, I'm super excited. I've never actually been to a Cosmoverse event. I've only been there vicariously through people's tweets and heard about it, and it sounds like a great time. So really excited to be there for the first time this year and kind of see what the event's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. This will actually be my second Cosmoverse. The first one, I mean, the last one was in Colombia, and it was so great. I loved meeting, so many people that I chat to all the time online, and I'm constantly seeing them on Twitter and Telegram, and I'm really excited to be there this year and get to see everyone in person, and maybe who knows, hopefully film an episode of Arch in the flesh and with other people. So yeah, that would be exciting.
That would be it would be exciting, and hopefully we could get some cool guests since a lot of the main people you interact with in general in the space will end up at Cosmoverse, and that's what's really cool about the whole event is that it really brings the entire community together, regardless of your affiliation with chains or what have you, and just lets all the people come together, innovate, and really just see who else is building in the space, and that's what I'm most excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Cosmos DeFi is leveling up. So moving on, Quasar mainnet is live. So basically, Quasar is the first interchain vault. So essentially, it allows multiple users, I mean, it allows a user to enter multiple osmosis pools with one click and automatically compound their returns. So this sounds really exciting to me.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that they're starting out with osmosis. It's where most of the liquidity lies, where most of the LPs lie as well in the space. So it seems like a natural starting point for KSR. And I think the idea of these vaults makes perfect sense, right? Like a lot of people want exposure to more than just one pool, but don't necessarily want to have to manage all these different pools. So these vaults provide a nice option where you can kind of get exposure to multiple pools without having to interact with each of them, and ideally with the different partners with KSR between Stride, Osmosis, then of course their own KSR token, they'll hopefully be able to provide some pretty nice incentives as well. So interested to see what other pairings they put up there, and then where they'll expand to next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this kind of gives me the thought that sparked my mind when I saw this is this will make it a lot easier for people that are not consistently in the Cosmos ecosystem and consistently looking at like proposals to vote for and things like that, and are constantly active in this space, a chance to participate in DeFi effectively, right? So, when you're managing your pool, so on osmosis and things like that requires checking it every day and claiming your rewards and all that stuff. So these managers will just make it easier to participate in DeFi passively or a little bit like actively, but not always having to take a look at it in the same way that like Sommelier does. So I think it'll make participating DeFi a lot more accessible to people that don't necessarily want to be checking their accounts every single day.
Absolutely, and I almost actually forgot about the automatic compounding. That's actually a really nice feature because, to your point, I've participated in Osmosis LPs. They're typically paid out in epochs, and so you have to kind of go manage that daily, depending on what your strategy is. So that is actually going to be a really big selling point, I think, for a lot of users. Is just having that auto compound feature, so you can kind of set it and forget it when it comes to LPing.
Yeah, and also just like that differentiated exposure risk, which will also be nice in order to like kind of like leave it and not have to worry too much about it, which will be really good to have. But now looking outside the Cosmos, these last few weeks have been quite intense. So we have the SEC going after two of the major exchanges in the crypto ecosystem. So first things first, the SEC is going after Coinbase. So the SEC sent Coinbase a Wells notice, basically letting them know that they might be coming after them, citing multiple violations of the Federal Exchange and Securities Act. So these violations include an unidentified portion of listed digital assets, Coinbase Earn, Coinbase Prime, and Coinbase Wallet. So they're saying that all of these businesses within the Coinbase ecosystem have created a violation, have violated the Federal Exchange and Securities Act. So the SEC has been investigating Coinbase for about the last year or so, and they've met a little over 30 times to kind of reach agreements. So I don't know, like this feels like it's been a long time coming, but at the same time, it kind of feels like, Coinbase has been very collaborative. It feels like they're going after the wrong monster.
Well, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's interesting because it does feel like Coinbase has been the most transparent and the most willing to work with the regulators. So to hear that they've met 30 times over the past however long you'd mentioned, that's a lot of meetings where you should be able to hash out a lot of the issues and really get down to the details of, who is in the right, who's in the wrong, or how to settle it. But it seems like there's still a lot of uncertainty. Coinbase has put out a thread as well as a blog from the head of their legal counsel and Brian Armstrong as well, kind of addressing the situation. And it seems like despite all these meetings, Coinbase still doesn't have a clear understanding of really what exactly they did or what tokens are actually being considered part of these. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this unfolds, and certainly one of those cases that we're going to keep our eyes on because it'll probably have a significant impact on the overall crypto space. But what's interesting is Coinbase wasn't even the only centralized exchange being targeted this week. So I know we're.
So previously, Kraken was targeted a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. I can't really remember the time frames, but because Kraken settled, there was no legislation that came out of that, right? So the silver lining of this is whatever this concludes in, we know that Coinbase isn't going to settle. So it should be setting a precedent in terms of legislation around crypto.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, on top of those two we just talked about, the CFTC also came after Binance recently. So this is another major event in the crypto space, this time by a different regulatory body than the SEC. But I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Really, the CFTC basically was claiming that Binance was counter trading customers, they were faking compliance audits, and that they were also tipping off certain customers of, that illegal activities were being done and that they were being traced. But really, what the biggest thing I noticed was that it's the CFTC, and the reason that the CFTC is involved is because they're essentially saying that a lot of what they were doing at Binance was derivatives, and therefore you need to be registered as a derivative exchange. From looking at some of the documents, I think 16% of their entire revenue came from U.S. customers on these derivative exchanges. So you can imagine, depending on how this ruling goes, it could significantly impact Binance if they're no longer allowed to offer those services.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the few other infractions that were cited is, having Binance address U.S. markets and kind of say you should use a VPN. So there are certain infractions that, if proved true, are quite bold. And they were quite bold on Binance's part. It looks like they faked a compliance audit as well. So it makes sense that they would go after them, but this is like a giant in the crypto space. So whatever this turns into, it will have giant implications within the crypto ecosystem and reverberations just across the blockchain industry as a whole.
Yeah, and this is, like you mentioned, it's going to have some big repercussions. So it's going to be very interesting to watch how this unfolds, and I know we'll be watching closely. And unfortunately, it seems like bad news keeps rolling in for the industry. We had another hack, so of course we'd like to mention it. This one was pretty big though. So Euler Finance basically was hacked the other day for about 200 million in total crypto assets. I think they mentioned it was almost 137, 140 million of it was staked ETH. The rest was kind of distributed between Wrap Bitcoin and some stables. But overall, about $200 million in crypto was stolen. But what's interesting is how this is kind of unraveled over the last few weeks or even days. So the Euler team basically asked the hacker to return 90% of the stolen funds, and they'd let him keep the 10% as long as he did it within 24 hours, which I think is a extremely generous offer by the Euler team. But unfortunately, they got no response in that 24-hour period, so they did offer a $1 million bounty to anyone who could identify the hacker. But things just kind of kept getting even crazier. The hacker has now returned around, last I checked, about 177 million of the 200. So, I mean, even just a few days ago, I think he'd only returned half. But this time, now where we're at, he's at about 177 million, and even attached an apology to one of the messages on the on-chain transactions. So, quite the story, to be honest with you.
At least, it's a hacker with a heart, conscious, and he's repenting, albeit a little bit forced, but the apology is a nice touch. But I think the craziest part of this story to me is that Euler Finance was audited around 10 times by 6 different companies, and they all concluded that it was a completely safe protocol. So this begs the question of who's conducting these audits, and what vulnerabilities aren't we seeing? What was exploited? Kind of like what type of job was this? It concerns me, the fact that the Euler Finance was so heavily audited, right? So like they couldn't have suspected that this was going to happen. This isn't, Mt. Gox in the early days of Bitcoin and Ethereum and not much else. This is, a protocol that went through the motions of making sure that it was safe for users to trade on. And that's the scary part to me.
Yeah, and it really does shine a light on the broader issue, right? Which is that these audits are not up to par, or at least they're not being done in a way that are preventing exploits in the way that I think most users would expect. When you see a application, a smart contract protocol is audited, you as a user have some level of confidence. Now, you can't assume 100% that there's no risk, but you'd assume that there's a very low, chance that this thing would be hacked if it's been audited this many times. But what we're finding out is these audits aren't really telling us much, because almost every single hack we've seen in this space has been to a protocol who has had audits, and sometimes multiple, and sometimes by some of the most reputable firms in the space. So I think, again, it's just shining a light on a much bigger issue, which is we need to improve the standards for what an audit is, and we need to really address how much assurance we're really getting out of these to understand if they're even worth doing, until we can find a way to better identify exploits and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah. Well, that's all for us this week. So we'll see you guys next week.
See you next time.